My name is Mason Brooks, and the day my father was laid out in a flag-draped casket at St. Mark's Episcopal Church in Austin, my tech mogul brother walked in late with the woman who left me 9 years ago. She leaned close, perfume sharp as jet fuel, and whispered, "So I guess I won, right? You're still just a pilot." I didn't flinch because I knew what was about to happen next. The church smelled like lilies and burnt coffee. Someone had set out those big silver urns in the fellowship hall. Early, like caffeine could patch over grief. Outside, the Texas air had that dry heat to it, the kind that makes your flight suit stick the second you step off the tarmac. Inside, it was all muffled sounds, dress uniforms brushing, the soft coughs people do when they don't know where to put their hands, the creak of old wooden pews as folks slid in. Brooke sat beside me, her fingers warm in mine. My wife, 47, steady eyes, the kind of woman who doesn't flinch when turbulence hits. She wore a simple black dress and a wool coat she'd had for years. No flashy jewelry, no performance, just real. My mother sat 2 pews up, shoulders rounded, staring at the honor guard like if she stared hard enough, she could change what had happened. Dad, Reed Brooks, had died at 78. Heart attack quick, they said. Merciful, they said. He was Air Force, 30 years, retired colonel. That's why we had the honor guard. That's why half the crowd wore dress blues. I'd learned a long time ago that people say merciful when they don't know what else to say. And then the back doors opened. A gust of heat slipped in with them, and with it came Preston. My brother, Preston Brooks, 52, startup founder, tech consultant. Whatever title sounded best on LinkedIn that week. He strolled down the center aisle like he owned the building. He was dressed in a dark suit that fit too perfectly to be off the rack, and his shoes shone like he'd polished them in the parking lot. He didn't hurry, didn't duck. His head didn't look like a man coming to bury his father. He looked like a man arriving at a product launch. Sierra was on his arm. Sierra Bennett, 46 now. The woman I'd nearly married. Black dress that probably cost more than my monthly truck payment. Hair done in that effortless way that takes 2 hours. Lips the color of dried wine. She'd always been good at looking like she belonged in rooms she didn't build. Heads turned. I felt it ripple through the pews the way sudden turbulence moves through a cabin. Whispers started right away. "That's Preston. Made millions in tech." "Of course he did. Who's that with him?" And then softer, nastier. "Mason's here too. Still flying routes, I heard." The old familiar feeling tried to climb up my throat. The one that says, "You're the backup pilot in your own family story." I swallowed it down hard. I wasn't 36 anymore. I wasn't standing in my apartment watching my life lose altitude like a bird strike. Preston stopped at the end of our pew. He looked at me like he was checking an item off a pre-flight list. "Mason," he murmured, polite enough for church. "Thanks for coming." He held his hand out, firm, confident, like we were business contacts at a networking mixer. I stared at it for a beat too long, not out of drama, out of calculation. My body still remembered what that hand had taken from me. Then I shook it once and let go. "Mom asked," I said. Preston's smile tightened just a fraction. "Right." Sierra leaned in, eyes sweeping over Brooke first, quick, assessing, the way she used to scan a restaurant for better tables, then landing on me. I saw the flicker of recognition, followed by that little lift at the corner of her mouth. The same expression she'd had 9 years ago when she set my class ring on the counter, like she was returning defective merchandise. "It's been a long time," she said, voice honey smooth with just enough edge to cut. Brooke's grip on my hand didn't change. She didn't squeeze harder. She just stayed, like autopilot when you need your hands free to handle an emergency. "Not long enough?" I said, quiet but clear. Sierra let out a soft laugh, like I'd told a joke at a cocktail party. "Still bitter?" I turned to look at her then. Really look. The same calculating eyes, the same performance smile, the same way of tilting her head like she was listening to something fascinating. "I'm not bitter," I said. "I'm awake." Preston's jaw flexed once. He didn't like that. Preston preferred emotions that could be managed on a quarterly basis. Mine, not his. The chaplain's voice began, gentle and practiced. People stood, sat, bowed, stood again. All the ritual, all the ceremony. My mind floated in and out of the words, but I kept my attention on the two people who'd walked in like they owned the place. Sierra kept glancing around, cataloging faces, measuring the crowd like she was evaluating market penetration. Preston checked his phone in his lap every few minutes, thumb moving in short, impatient strokes. At one point, he leaned toward Sierra and whispered something that made her nod quickly, her smile too bright for a military funeral. I caught a fragment. After this, we need to... business. Even here, even now, it was always business. When the honor guard began folding the flag, the sharp crack of fabric in practiced hands, I watched my mother's face crumble, watched her shoulders shake as they handed her the triangle of stars and stripes, watched her hold it against her chest like it could bring him back. And I watched Preston. He didn't cry, he didn't reach for Mom. He glanced at his Rolex and shifted in his seat like he had somewhere more important to be. That's when I knew today was going to be even more satisfying than I'd hoped. The service ended with taps echoing through the church, each note hanging in the air like a promise. People began to move toward the fellowship hall, that awkward, shuffle of grief and obligation. Sierra stood first, smoothing her dress, already scanning the crowd for whoever might matter most in the room. She had no idea she was about to find out exactly who that was. The fellowship hall was warm, too warm. The coffee smelled institutional and strong, paper plates, catered sandwiches. Somebody had brought a casserole that sat untouched at the end of the table because nobody wants to be the first one to take a scoop at a military funeral. I stood with Brooke near the back, letting people come to Mom, letting her receive their condolences. Old Air Force buddies, a couple of retired mechanics, neighbors from Dad's subdivision, men with weathered hands and women with careful makeup. People who understood that service meant something more than stock options. Preston and Sierra had positioned themselves near the coffee station, where the traffic flow was heaviest. Strategic positioning. Preston's laugh carried across the room, too loud, too frequent, like he was holding court instead of mourning. Sierra worked the room with practiced efficiency, her pharma sales training on full display. She collected business cards the way other people collected sympathy. I watched them operate and felt something cold and satisfied settle in my chest. They were playing the same game they had always played. They just had no idea the rules had changed. A tall man in a navy blazer approached me with a slow, respectful nod. "Captain Brooks?" he asked. "Yes," I said, shifting my attention fully to him. At a funeral, you don't know if the next words are going to be condolence or another reminder of why you don't measure up to your brother's portfolio. He stuck out his hand. "Shane Coleman, Airport Authority Board. I just wanted to say, your father was a pillar in this community, and I appreciate what you've done for the runway expansion project. Those safety protocols you designed are going to save lives." His handshake was firm, not flashy. Working man, firm. "Thank you," I said, and I meant it. It was a team effort. From across the room, I saw Sierra's head snap toward us like radar locking onto a target. Preston's conversation faltered as he tried to place the name, tried to figure out why Airport Authority was talking to his little brother like he mattered. Shane continued, his voice carrying just enough to reach nearby conversations. "We're meeting next month about the cargo hub expansion. Your consulting firm's bid is impressive, really impressive. The FAA loves your approach to integrated safety systems." He paused, and I could feel the room's attention shifting like air pressure before a storm. "Brooks Aviation Consulting is exactly what this industry needs," Shane said. "Innovation grounded in real operational experience. Your father would be proud of what you've built." When he walked away, the silence around me felt different, like the moment after lightning strikes, but before the thunder rolls. Sierra drifted over, heels clicking on the tile like Morse code. Preston followed half a step behind, his startup swagger suddenly looking forced. "Well," Sierra said, drawing the word out like she was tasting wine. "Look at you, still doing your little airport projects." I could smell her perfume again, expensive, floral, sharp. It took me right back to a night 9 years ago when that scent was on my pillow after she walked out with her rolling suitcase and her promises to Preston. "You're still driving that practical truck," she added, eyes flicking toward the parking lot as if she'd already done reconnaissance. "Some things never change." I drive what I trust, I said. I stopped buying things to impress people who don't matter. Her smile faltered just a fraction, not because my words were cruel, because they landed exactly where I'd aimed them. She wanted me defensive, embarrassed, small. She wanted the old Mason, the one who'd compete, for her attention. Preston leaned in slightly, voice low but urgent. "Since when are you consulting for the airport authority?" I looked at him. Really looked. The suit was perfect, but there was something desperate around his eyes. His confidence felt rehearsed, like a presentation he'd given too many times to investors who weren't buying. "Since I stopped trying to impress the wrong audience," I said. That's when Sierra made her move. She stepped closer, close enough that her breath touched my ear, close enough that anyone watching would think we were sharing something intimate. "So, I guess I won, right?" she whispered. "You're still just a pilot." The words hung in the air between us like the moment before impact. For half a second, my chest tightened. Not because the words were new, because my body remembered the old wound, the old shame, the old feeling of never being enough for people who measured worth in exit strategies and disruption potential. Then, I heard Mom's quiet sob behind us. I felt Brooke's presence at my side, steady and real. I thought about the contracts in my briefcase, the municipal bonds bearing my signature, the safety protocols with my name on them, protecting thousands of travelers who'd never know I existed. And something in me settled into perfect cold clarity. I turned and met Sierra's gaze. Not angry, not pleading. Not the old Mason who would have scrambled to prove himself. Just level. "Sierra," I said, my voice carrying just far enough for Preston to hear, "you're still keeping score in a game that ended 9 years ago." Her brow creased. She didn't understand. "I'm not even playing anymore," I continued. "While you've been tracking my altitude, I've been building a different kind of empire. One you couldn't see because you were looking in the wrong direction." Preston's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and I watched his face change. Whatever message he'd received wasn't good news. "Excuse me," he muttered, stepping away to take a call. Sierra watched him go, confusion spreading across her face like weather moving in. That's when the rest of my audience arrived. A woman in Air Force dress blues approached our small cluster, her bearing sharp and purposeful. Behind her, 3 men in expensive suits that screamed federal contracting. Behind them, a city councilman I recognized from budget meetings. The cavalry had arrived, and Sierra had no idea she was about to be flanked. "Captain Brooks," the woman said, extending her hand. "Colonel Patricia Hayes, base commander at Bergstrom. I wanted to personally thank you for your work on the new cargo security protocols. The Pentagon is implementing your framework nationwide." Sierra's face went blank. Preston was still 20 feet away, pacing with his phone pressed to his ear, voice getting tighter with each sentence. I could catch fragments. "Told you the funding was secured. And not until Q4. At minimum." One of the contractors stepped forward. "Mason, Bill Morrison from Lockheed. We're hoping to schedule that meeting about the defense logistics contract. Your aviation consulting work has caught some attention in Washington." I shook his hand, feeling Sierra's eyes boring into me like laser guidance. "Of course. Have your people call my office next week." "Your office?" Sierra's voice cracked just slightly. The city councilman joined the conversation. "Mr. Brooks, I don't think we've been properly introduced. Jim Patterson, Austin City Council. Your proposal for the integrated air cargo hub is exactly what this city needs. Economic development through infrastructure. It's brilliant." "Thank you, Councilman. It's about building something that lasts." Sierra stood there like someone had just explained quantum physics using finger puppets. Her pharma sales training hadn't prepared her for this moment, the moment when the allegedly inferior option turns out to have been playing a completely different game. "I don't understand," she said, looking back and forth between the federal contractors and me. "Mason's just a commercial pilot," I finished, "among other things." Colonel Hayes smiled. "Captain Brooks is being modest. Brooks Aviation Consulting has become the go-to firm for integrated airport security systems. The FAA considers him one of their top advisors on commercial aviation safety protocols." That's when Preston returned, phone call apparently not going well. His face had that particular shade of pale that comes when venture capital starts asking uncomfortable questions about burn rates and revenue projections. "What's going on?" he asked, trying to insert himself into the conversation, like he belonged there. "We were just discussing your brother's consulting work," Bill Morrison said. "Impressive operation he's built. The Pentagon doesn't hand out national security contracts to just anyone." Preston's smile froze. "National security contracts?" "Classified specifics," Colonel Hayes said. "But let's just say Captain Brooks's expertise in aviation systems has proven valuable to Homeland Security initiatives." I watched Preston process this information like a computer running malware. His little brother, the backup pilot, was apparently consulting for the Pentagon, while Preston's startup was scrambling for Series B funding. "How long has this been going on?" Sierra asked, her voice small. "About 5 years now," I said. "Started small, safety audits, protocol reviews, then the FAA noticed my work, then the Defense Department. Word travels fast when you actually solve problems instead of just disrupting things." Preston's phone buzzed again. He glanced at it, and whatever he saw made his jaw clench. "I need to... excuse me for a moment." He stepped away again, leaving Sierra alone in hostile airspace. She turned to me, and I could see her recalibrating, trying to process the fact that the man she'd left for being too predictable had built something she couldn't even comprehend. Something that made Preston's tech consulting look like a lemonade stand. "You never said anything," she whispered. "To who?" I asked. "You. You made it clear that pilot wasn't impressive enough." "Preston?" "He made it clear he thought I was settling for mediocrity. Why would I explain myself to people who'd already written me off?" The federal contractors were discussing timeline details with Colonel Hayes, treating me like someone whose time mattered, whose expertise was valuable. Sierra watched this with the expression of someone realizing they had folded a winning hand. "Besides," I continued, my voice low enough that only she could hear, "the kind of people I work with now don't need to know about your drama. They care about results, not performance." That hit home. Sierra had spent 9 years performing for Preston, for his startup world, for the Austin tech scene. She'd turned her life into a LinkedIn post, all surface and no substance. "The funny thing is," I said, "you actually did me a favor." Her eyes flashed. "A favor?" "When you left, I stopped trying to impress people who measure success in IPOs and exit strategies. Started focusing on work that actually matters. Turns out, when you're keeping passenger jets from falling out of the sky, people take notice. The right people." Preston reappeared, his face grim. Whatever conversation he'd been having had not gone well. "Sierra, we need to go," he said, not meeting my eyes. "Why?" she asked, but her voice lacked conviction. "Funding issues. The investors want to meet tonight." I could see the pattern now, the desperate phone calls, the weekend meetings, the urgent conversations. Preston's empire wasn't expanding, it was contracting. While I'd been building something solid, he'd been building something fast, and in the startup world, fast usually means fragile. "Of course," Sierra said, gathering herself. But before she left, she turned back to me one last time. "So, I guess I didn't win after all," she said, trying for humor but landing somewhere closer to devastation. I looked at her for a long moment. 9 years ago, this woman had shattered my world. Tonight, she was just another face in the crowd at my father's funeral, someone I used to know who'd made a series of increasingly poor choices. "Sierra," I said, my voice carrying just enough warmth to be cruel, "you never even knew what game we were playing." They left without another word, Preston practically dragging Sierra toward the exit, both of them looking like passengers who'd just realized they were on the wrong flight to the wrong destination. I watched them go with the kind of satisfaction that comes from watching a long-term investment finally pay dividends. But their departure was just the opening act. As the federal contractors continued, discussing contract timelines, and Colonel Hayes mentioned something about a commendation ceremony, I found myself thinking back to the moment this all started, the moment when losing everything turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me. 9 years ago, I was 36 years old and convinced my life had already reached cruising altitude. I lived in a modest 2-bedroom apartment in South Austin, 15 minutes from Bergstrom. Standard pilot crash pad, clean, functional, nothing fancy. Just like the life I thought I was building. I flew for American Airlines, domestic and international routes, specializing in the 737 and 777 fleets, the workhorses of commercial aviation. The planes nobody notices until something goes catastrophically wrong. My salary was steady, $165,000 a year. Good benefits. A pension I understood and trusted. I'd never once missed a rent payment. Sierra used to say that was one of the things she loved about me. "You're reliable," she told me on our third date, back when that word sounded like praise instead of an epithet. Sierra Bennett was 37 then, a pharmaceutical sales rep for a major company downtown. She dressed sharp even on casual Fridays, always had a client dinner to attend, always had her phone face down on the table like it might buzz with something world-changing at any moment. She talked about momentum a lot, about market penetration, about how Austin was exploding, but maybe not forever. We met through mutual friends at a rooftop bar on Rainey Street. She laughed at my dry observations about passenger behavior. I liked the way she leaned in when she listened, like she actually wanted to be there. We dated 2 years before I proposed. I asked her during a quiet weekend in Fredericksburg, no crowd, no photographer hiding in the bushes, just the hill country and a ring I'd saved 8 months for. $4,200. I remember thinking it was the most money I'd ever spent on something that fit in a jewelry box. She cried when she said yes. I held on to that memory for a long time, after everything exploded. Way too long. My brother Preston was already a presence in our relationship by then, whether I was smart enough to notice it or not. Preston had always been larger than life, 4 years older, louder, faster. He'd built his tech consulting business riding the wave of companies desperate to scale or die. He talked in acronyms and metrics I didn't bother to learn. He lived downtown in a glass tower and drove a Tesla that made heads turn when it whispered past. Family dinners changed when Preston was around. Dad, Reed Brooks, would straighten up a little when Preston walked in, ask about valuations, about what's next in the pipeline. He never asked me about weather delays or maintenance schedules. When I tried to explain a challenging approach to DFW in a thunderstorm, his eyes would glaze just enough to let me know he was waiting for Preston to jump back in with talk of disruption and scalability. "You're smart, Mason," Dad told me once, cutting his steak with military precision. "I just don't get why you'd settle for a salary when you could build equity." Settle. That word lodged itself in my chest and stayed there like shrapnel. Sierra noticed everything. She always did. The way Preston commanded every room he entered. The way people leaned toward him when he spoke about disruption and market capture and the future of whatever industry he was consulting for that quarter. The way Dad nodded along like Preston was delivering strategic intelligence even when he was just talking louder than everyone else. "He's impressive," Preston said once, looking Sierra up and down like he was appraising an acquisition target. "You've got good taste, little brother." I laughed it off. I trusted my brother. I trusted my fiancée. That's what people like me do. We assume loyalty until the black box data proves otherwise. The engagement dinner was when the ground really started to shift beneath me. We'd chosen a place in East Austin, farm to table, industrial chic, the kind of spot where the waiters called you folks and knew the backstory of every ingredient. Just our parents, Preston and Sierra. Nothing fancy. Preston arrived 30 minutes late, of course, made a show of apologizing, ordered the most expensive bourbon without asking what anyone else wanted. He talked about a Series A he was advising on, about timing market cycles, about how money was just a tool for building the future according to Preston anyway. Sierra watched him like he was delivering a TED Talk on the meaning of life. Mom pulled me aside near the restroom. "Keep an eye on this," she said softly. "You know how your brother operates." I smiled like an idiot. He's just being himself. Mothers see flight patterns before the pilots do. Sons pretend not to notice until it's too late for evasive maneuvers. Over the next few months, Preston's name came up in our conversations more than air traffic control protocols. Preston thinks the airline industry is about to be disrupted by autonomous flight systems. Preston says I should look into aviation startups instead of staying corporate. Preston says commercial pilots are going to be automated out of existence anyway. Each time it sounded harmless, advice, concern, future-proofing, until the night Sierra left her laptop open on the coffee table while she took a call from a client. Steam fogged the bathroom mirror. The sound of her voice, professional and smooth, carried through the apartment as she handled some pharmaceutical rep crisis that couldn't wait. Her laptop screen glowed like a beacon. And something made me look. Maybe instinct. Maybe the way she'd angled it away from me before taking the call. I told myself there was an explanation. A misunderstanding, something innocent and professional. I clicked through the email thread that was already open. There was nothing innocent about what I found. Months of messages. Plans that included my exclusion. Jokes at my expense that cut like turbulence. Meetings scheduled for times when I was flying red-eyes or sitting through recurrent training. Pictures I won't dignify by describing. Promises about futures that didn't include me. One message burned itself into my memory like a permanent flight restriction. He's always been the family disappointment. You deserve someone who's building something bigger than a flight schedule. When Sierra came out, still holding her phone, smiling like everything was perfectly normal, I was sitting on the couch with her laptop balanced on my knees. "How long?" I asked without looking up. She froze like someone had just announced an emergency descent. Her phone buzzed with another message from Preston. Then her face changed. Not guilt. Relief. Like she'd been waiting for this moment to finally stop pretending. 6 months, she said. "Since your dad's birthday party?" The room went quiet except for the hum of the air conditioning and the distant sound of jets on final approach to Bergstrom. "Why?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. She sat down across from me, like she was about to negotiate a contract termination. "I'm tired of predictable, Mason. Tired of safe. Preston can give me the life I actually want to build. You're stable, but stable isn't enough anymore." She said it like she was explaining market dynamics to someone who didn't understand economics. When I called Preston the next day, he didn't deny anything. Why would he? "That's how the world works, little brother," he said, actually laughing. "The bold take what they want. The cautious get what's left." 2 weeks later, they went public with their relationship. Photos on social media, weekend trips to tech conferences, smiles too wide to be sustainable. Dad told me to move on. Mom cried. I stopped sleeping through the night and started planning something better than revenge. Back in the present, the fellowship hall was emptying. The federal contractors had left with promises to call my office. Colonel Hayes had shaken my hand one more time, mentioning something about a Pentagon briefing next month. The city councilman had handed me his card, talking about infrastructure budgets and long-term planning. Brooke squeezed my hand. "How are you feeling?" "Like I just watched 9 years of investment payoff," I said. Mom came over, looking tired but peaceful. "Those were impressive people talking to you," she said. "Your father would have been proud." "He figured it out eventually," I said. "Preston's Flash, but Flash doesn't build airports that last 50 years. As we walked to the parking lot, I thought about the path that had brought me here. After Sierra left, I'd spent months flying on autopilot, going through the motions of a life that no longer made sense. But somewhere in that wreckage, I'd found something better than anger. I'd found clarity. I'd started small, safety consulting for small regional airports, protocol reviews that nobody wanted to do because they were detailed, boring, and absolutely critical. While Preston chased unicorns and disruption, I chased excellence in fundamentals. While Sierra climbed the pharma sales ladder, I built expertise that governments and militaries actually needed. Brooks Aviation Consulting had grown quietly, steadily, like compound interest. No flashy launches, no press releases, no TechCrunch articles, just results, just expertise that saved lives and made complex systems work better. The Pentagon doesn't hand out national security contracts to people who chase trends. They hand them to people who understand that some things, like keeping airplanes in the sky, never go out of style. By the time I met Brooke at that airport committee meeting, I wasn't looking to prove anything to anyone. I was just building something. That mattered. She liked that. She liked that I talked about 20-year infrastructure cycles instead of quarterly earnings. She liked that I measured success in lives saved instead of exits achieved. The funny thing about revenge is that the best kind doesn't feel like revenge at all. It feels like justice, like the universe finally getting its accounting straight. Standing in that church parking lot, watching Preston's Tesla speed away toward whatever funding crisis was waiting for him, I felt something close to gratitude. Sierra and Preston had done me the biggest favor of my life. They'd forced me to stop competing in a game I was never going to win and start building something they couldn't even see, let alone take away. 9 years ago, I thought losing Sierra meant I'd lost everything. Tonight, I understood that she'd actually set me free to become someone worth being. Someone who didn't need validation from people who measured worth in venture capital and market. Disruption. The truth is, some people spend their whole lives trying to impress audiences that don't matter. They chase applause from crowds that will forget them the moment the next act takes the stage. They build empires on foundations of sand and call it success. But real success, the kind that keeps you awake at night because you're excited about tomorrow, not worried about it, comes from building something that lasts, something that matters when the venture capital dries up, and the startup conferences end, and the only thing left is what you actually contributed to the world. Sierra thought she won when she traded up. She had no idea she was handing me the keys to a life she'll spend the rest of hers trying to afford. Sometimes the best revenge is simply becoming someone the people who doubted you could never hope to be, even if they never figure out what hit them.